Hello and welcome to episode 139 of Daryl Show Your Work. All right, so continuing on with the overall theme of post exploitation enumeration of Windows-based hosts. All right, in this episode, I'm going to be looking to gather network information on our compromised host here. All right, so before I jump into that, I'm going to preface this video with my usual disclaimer where I'm doing red team or offensive security activities by saying that this is for ethical research and educational purposes only. Any sort of malicious activity that may directly or indirectly come from someone watching this video, I do not take responsibility for, nor do I condone. All right, so a few things here that I'm going to be looking for now that I'm inside of this of our target host. I'm going to be looking for the current IP address, network adapter information, any to search for any other internal networks that it may have access to, TCP and UDP services that are running, and also their respective ports, other hosts that are on the network, routing tables, and Windows firewalls statuses. All right, so I've done some pre-recording discovery and exploitation here. So as far as discovery, my IP address is 10.10.4.48.5. Our target IP address is 10.3.29.227. All right, and then I've also conducted the Rigetto based exploitation of our Windows-based host. So I've already gained an interpreter session for myself here. All right, so to start things off here, I'm gonna just show some some things here. All right, so I'm gonna do a shell because this is going to be a Windows-based command. So I'm gonna need to execute the shell here. All right, so I'm gonna start off with a real basic command that everybody pretty much knows. All right, should be at least familiar with, and that is ipconfig. All right, which is going to give me it's going to give me just the basic networking information of this machine. All right, so um, the thing to pay attention to right here is with the subnet mask. All right, it's going to tell me how many devices are or can be part of this subnet, and I can figure this out by calculating the octal notation. So just looking at this, if I had to guess, maybe 4,000, maybe 90 something machines are capable of joining this network. So it's maybe a fairly large network here. And then judging by the DNS information here, very well could be AWS or Amazon based network that it's part of. So it's maybe using a EC2 instance. All right, so that's some of the information here that I could gain. All right, then another familiar command that I'm going to be using here is ipconfig, but then ipconfig/all. All right, and these are very basic Windows networking commands that you could use. But as I said in my previous video, I want to be able to put it all in the context of post exploitation. All right, so just taking a look at some of the things here, some of the information that I could gather here. The first thing I want to pay attention to here is the physical address, which is the same as the other MAC address. So knowing that is important in case I ever want to conduct a MAC address spoofing attack. All right, so if I know what the MAC address here is, I know what MAC address that I could spoof to make to confuse the system or confuse users into believing that it's a legitimate user here on the system where indeed it's not. I'm just simply pretending or masquerading as that MAC address or that machine here um, on the network. All right, and then also I can see that DHCP is enabled. All right, so that's some other important information to know because well, one, it lets me know that the IP addresses are assigned automatically by the gateway. All right, so this being enabled, it tells me that the hosts on the subnet have dynamic addresses, all right, which means that they change periodically or over time, okay, and not static, which means that once it's assigned, that it stays the same. So that's good for me to know, because then, if I know that, if I target a certain machine, and and if I'm trying to maintain some level of persistence, all right, and depending on what that method is, if that IP address changes, then I may mess with my methodology in a way that I try to maintain some level of persistence, or some way of targeting a specific host if they're running, they have DHCP enabled, and their IP address has been um, assigned, automatically by the DHCP server. All right, so going down here a little bit further, I can see the delete information. All right, so what this tells me is that when the IP addresses, when they're assigned, and when they expire. So when it expires, when it expires, it's either going to be assigned a new IP address, or it's going to depending on whether or not it's some conflict as far as the addressing, it could retain the same one. All right, so this is some good information to know, even though this lease, I mean, only has an hour lease. All right, so this is not ideal, but this is good information to know, as far as how long, when the IP address is assigned dynamically, how long that IP address is good for. All right. And then another thing is, you may have remembered in my previous videos that I've used something known as auto routing. All right, so that was due to the target host that I compromised being connected into a different network that I could not publicly access, and that information was available to me here during the network enumeration. So this allowed me to create the route to that network. So I don't see anything here that would um, that would allude to there being another network here. All right, and let me see. I could also look at the routing table. So I'm gonna show how to do that. So in order to view routing tables, I'm gonna say route and then print. All right, so that's how you view the routing tables. All right. Okay, so and this shows the active. This also shows all the active routes. All right. So another thing is, let's say that going back to the whole MAC address, if I wanted to display the ARP table, all right, which is going to give me a view of the MAC addresses of all the devices that are running on the network here currently. So in order to do that, I'm gonna say ARP dash A. All right. And so so right here we can see the IP addresses, all right, on this side. And then we can see all the physical addresses, which is the same as the MAC addresses that's aligned to these machines. So some appear to be dynamic, and some appear to be static here. All right. And this is this is important in terms of being able to find other targets to pivot to. All right. So once I compromise this machine, if I'm looking for devices on the network, in order to be able to compromise and to pivot to and create that auto route towards this table, is going to allow me. It's going to help enable me to do that. All right. So let's say if I wanted to view which services have active connections here on the network. All right. To do that, I could say netstat. All right, dash A and O. All right, just scrolling up a little bit here. All right, so what this is showing me. So this is again, these are showing me those active connections of the services that are running, and it also includes the port numbers, the states, and the process ID. So right here, where we see local address, at the very end of it, these are the actual port numbers here. All right, and then we could see the addresses that they're connecting to and then the ports that they're connecting to on the outside, and then the state. So we see that there's a few that are listening, but the thing we want to pay attention to are the ones that are established. All right. So, and then here are the process IDs. All right, for those running processes. All right. So we see from this list that three appear to have established connections here. One of which appears to be HTTPS. All right, and we look here at port 4444. I believe this is, judging by, let me see, going back to what my IP address here. Yeah, see, 10.10.48.5. All right, that is actually my interpreter session here. All right, so that's what I use in order to make this connection to exploit that Rigetto vulnerability. And yeah, this is my connection right here. All right, IP address and then port in which the connection was made. And we can see that it's a reverse shell too, um, because the target is connecting back to me. All right. So see, another thing that I wanted to touch on is, let's say we wanted to see what the firewall status is. All right. So in order to do that, and which of course is kind of self-explanatory as far as why we want to know that, to be able to know what network defenses are currently active here on the target host. All right, so let's say net sh and then firewall. All right, so this is running this command. It's going to show us the different options that we can run with it. All right, and I think, let me see. This may or may not work. Let me see. If I'm gonna try to show the status of the firewall, but let's see if the it's writing it like this will. If not, there's another way that I can write this command. So net sh firewall show all profiles. Yeah, see that? Okay, so and I don't think, yeah, I don't do the history here, so I actually have to write the whole thing over again. Okay, sometimes you have to, if that doesn't work, you have to type in ADV as in advanced, and then firewall, and then show all profiles. Let's see if that works. All right, so it gave me back an error message saying an error occurred while attempting to contact the Windows firewall service. Make sure that the service is running and try your request again. All right, so that could be indicative of actually the firewall not being up and running. All right, so which again, that's very good information for me if I'm an intruder. So I would probably have to invest. I wouldn't go off of just that message alone. I would probably want to dig a little deeper into seeing if the firewall is indeed up. But at least lets me know that, hey, there's something a little off here with this firewall, because it's not giving me back any information. And again, there's some indicators here that it actually may not be running. All right, so those are just some basic network enumeration commands that we can run once we have compromised a target. So again, just going over briefly some things that I've done here, show how we can show that basic excuse me, networking information just by using that ipconfig command, and then ipconfig all basically gives us far more information than the ipconfig command on its own. All right, so it tells us stuff like the MAC address, all right, which is important for us in case we want to spoof it, DHCP in case we want to know if IP address is dynamic or static, how long, and then building off of that, looking at the least information. If we are talking about a dynamic address, and knowing how long the IP address is good for. So in case there was any sort of persistence mechanisms that we wanted to exploit, taking that in consideration when looking at that. And then also just explaining how some of how some of the information I could get back from that that can further enable me to be able to create a route into another a device on an external network that this computer may have access to, that I readily don't have access to, which would then enable me to pivot onto a computer into a completely different network. All right. Then I showed how we could see the routing tables, and then how we could see get those MAC address, that MAC address, that those ARP tables with the MAC addresses in them. Again, if we wanted to see some different options of machines that perhaps create a route to, in order to pivot into those. And then also just how we could view some of the active connections here with the services running, as far as what ports they're connected to, what the services excuse me, what connections have been established, what ports or what protocols are currently in listening mode, et cetera, and then also how we could check the state of network defenses, such as firewalls, to determine what network defenses may be currently up and running, and determine if there's any sort of evasion actions that we may need to take from there. So please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, show your work. Until next time, take care of yourself, and God bless.